In 1996, Scott Hall walked into a WCW arena making $1 million a year. By 2010, he was living in a spare bedroom, taking 11 different medications a day just to control his seizures, his fortune completely gone. His story is not unique. It is practically an epidemic in professional wrestling. What you are about to hear is not just a list of wrestlers who went broke. This is a deep dive into how an industry that generates billions of dollars systematically fails the people who destroy their bodies to entertain us. We are talking about men who main evented WrestleMania ending up in homeless shelters, legends selling their Hall of Fame rings just to pay rent, champions who cannot afford the surgeries they need because of injuries that made Vince McMahon rich. Over the 30 minutes, we will cover 20 different wrestlers whose stories range from heartbreaking to infuriating to genuinely inspiring. Some found redemption, some are still fighting, and some did not make it. Let us start with one of the most talented wrestlers of his generation, a man whose charisma was only matched by his demons. Scott Hall. Scott Hall, known as Razor Ramon to WWE fans, was the definition of cool. The toothpick, the accent, the razor's edge, everything about him screamed main event star. At his peak in WCW, his pay put him among the highest paid wrestlers of the Monday Night Wars era. But behind that swagger was a man haunted by something that happened in 1983. Hall was working as a bouncer at a nightclub in Orlando when a man pulled a gun during an altercation. Hall wrestled the weapon away and shot the attacker in self-defense. The man died. Hall was never charged, but he never recovered either. That trauma followed him everywhere. He self-medicated with alcohol and drugs, and the wrestling business, with its culture of excess and easy access to substances, only made things worse. WCW actually exploited his real-life addiction in 1998 for a storyline, putting his genuine struggle on television for ratings. His ex-wife Dana publicly called out the company for enabling his self-destruction. The money disappeared as fast as it came in. Multiple DUI arrests, domestic incidents, firings from WCW and from TNA and other places he worked. By 2010, Hall was hospitalized with seizures and diagnosed with epilepsy. He needed 11 different medications a day just to function. WWE, to their credit, paid for his rehab after TNA released him. But the real turning point came in 2012 when Diamond Dallas Page, known as DDP, essentially saved his life. DDP invited Hall to live at what he called the Accountability Crib in Atlanta. Through the DDP yoga program and genuine friendship, Hall lost weight, got sober, and found something he had been missing for decades: hope. In 2014, Hall was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. Watching him give that speech, sober and emotional, was one of the most powerful moments in wrestling history. He had come back from the dead. Sadly, the years of abuse had taken their toll. On March 14, 2022, Scott Hall died from complications following hip replacement surgery. He was 63 years old. His estimated net worth at death was $2 million, a fraction of what he had earned, but more than many expected given how far he had fallen. Scott Hall's story is ultimately one of redemption, but it is also a warning. The wrestling business chewed him up, and when he needed help the most, it was a fellow wrestler, not a corporation, who stepped up to save him. If Scott Hall's story is about redemption, Jake Roberts' story is about resurrection. At his peak in the early 1990s, Jake the Snake Roberts was earning $3.5 million a year. Let that sink in. $3.5 million. He was one of the most compelling characters in wrestling history, a master psychologist whose promos are still studied today. But Jake's demons started long before wrestling. He suffered sexual and physical abuse from his stepmother as a child. His biological father, Grizzly Smith, was a pedophile who abused Jake's half-sister. That kind of trauma does not just go away, it festers. Jake turned to alcohol and crack cocaine. The 1999 documentary Beyond the Mat showed the wrestling world something it was not prepared to see. Jake Roberts completely broken, estranged from his daughter, barely functional. It was uncomfortable viewing, and it was completely real. By 2011, Jake was 55 years old, retired, living alone, and suicidal. He had attempted to overdose on Valium. His weight had ballooned past 300 pounds. He could not walk across a room without losing his breath. The $3.5 million was gone. Every penny. Then came the same man who saved Scott Hall. In October 2012, Diamond Dallas Page invited Jake to the accountability crib. What followed was documented in the 2015 film The Resurrection of Jake the Snake Roberts. The transformation was remarkable. Through DDP yoga, Jake lost over 50 pounds in 18 months. He regained his mobility, his clarity, and his will to live. When he needed shoulder surgery, fans crowdfunded it on Indiegogo, raising $9,200 in just 2 days because he had no health insurance. In 2014, Jake Roberts was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. His speech, like Scott Hall's, was emotional and raw. Two men who had been written off as lost causes, standing in that ring together, alive against all odds. Today, Jake's net worth sits around $500,000. He has an AEW contract, a WWE Legends deal, and he does speaking engagements. More importantly, he is sober, and he is present for his family. DDP did not just help these men lose weight. He gave them accountability, structure, and friendship. The wrestling business created their addictions, and a wrestler had to save them from it. Marty Jannetty. The Rockers were one of the hottest tag teams in WWE history. Shawn Michaels went on to become arguably the greatest in-ring performer of all time. Marty Jannetty went through a window on the barbershop and never recovered, in more ways than one. He had a cocaine addiction throughout his career. He has openly admitted to doing cocaine with Shawn Michaels while they were a team. But while Michaels got help, got clean, and became a multiple-time world champion, Jannetty spiraled. In 1990, Jannetty performed a move called the Rocker Dropper on a young wrestler named Chuck Austin. Something went wrong. Austin's neck was broken, leaving him paralyzed. The lawsuit that followed resulted in a $26.7 million judgment against WWE, with Jannetty personally liable for approximately $500,000. That kind of debt, combined with addiction, is a death sentence for financial stability. Jannetty was fired from WWE multiple times, in 1992 for cocaine possession and resisting arrest, and repeatedly after that for simply being unreliable. By 2019, the situation was dire. Jannetty needed ankle surgery but could not afford it. When people suggested a GoFundMe, he refused. He explained his logic in the most heartbreaking way possible. He said he could do it now, but then he would be broke. If he did not make money after that, then where was he going to eat? Think about that. A man who performed at WrestleMania, who was half of one of the most beloved tag teams ever, choosing between surgery and food. Chris Jericho and Joey Janela both offered to help pay for the surgery. Jannetty turned them down. His lawsuit against WWE was dismissed in 2018. As of 2024, reports indicate his ankle problems have gotten so severe that amputation might be necessary. WWE has no alumni healthcare program, no retirement benefits. Marty Jannetty gave his body to that company, and when it broke down, he was left with nothing but a choice between eating and walking. In 1996, Tammy Lynn Sitch, known to wrestling fans as Sunny, was the most downloaded woman on the entire internet. America Online literally tracked this. She was the face of the WWE women's division before there even was a real women's division. A groundbreaking star who proved that female performers could draw money. Fast forward to 2023, and Sunny is sitting in a Florida courtroom being sentenced to 17 years in prison. The fall was steep and ugly. After leaving WWE, Sunny turned to adult entertainment, explicit content, and paid Skype sessions. The money from her wrestling fame was long gone. In 2012 alone, she was arrested 5 or 6 times in just a few weeks. The charges included driving under the influence, violating protective orders, and burglary. She sold her WWE Hall of Fame ring in 2016 just to cover legal costs. From 2012 to 2022, she averaged nearly 1 arrest per year. The addiction had completely consumed her. Then came March 2022. Sonny was driving in Ormond Beach, Florida with a blood alcohol level 4 times the legal limit. She rear-ended a car stopped at a traffic light. The driver, 75-year-old Julian Lasseter, was killed. In November 2023, she was sentenced to 17 years in prison, plus 8 years of probation for DUI manslaughter. She will not be eligible for release until approximately 2039. Sonny's story is not just about addiction, it is about what happens when fame disappears overnight. She went from being the most downloaded woman on the internet to selling herself online just to survive. There was no support system, no transition plan, nothing to catch her when she fell. A man is dead because nobody in an industry that made millions off Tammy Sitch thought to help her when she clearly needed it. That is not an excuse. She made her choices, and a family lost their father and grandfather. But it is worth asking how many more tragedies have to happen before something changes. Perry Saturn. Perry Saturn's story might be the most tragic on this list because his downfall started with an act of genuine heroism. In April 2004, Saturn was in an Atlanta parking lot when he witnessed a woman being sexually assaulted. He intervened. The attacker pulled a gun and shot Saturn twice, once in the neck, once in the shoulder. Saturn survived, but the chronic pain from those injuries changed everything. To manage the pain, Saturn turned to methamphetamine. Within months, he was homeless, living on the streets for 2.5 years. His family had no idea where he was. The wrestling world assumed he might be dead. He resurfaced around 2010, having somehow beaten the addiction on his own. But the damage wasn't over. By 2017, Saturn revealed he was suffering from traumatic brain injury, the result of years of taking shots to the head in the ring, constant headaches, brain fog, dementia-like symptoms. He couldn't drive. He couldn't work. In January 2017, Saturn posted a video that broke hearts across the wrestling community. He said, "In a week or two, I will be homeless. I don't know where my next meal is going to come from." A man who got shot trying to save a woman from rape was now begging for help on social media because the industry he gave his body to offered nothing. A GoFundMe campaign raised over $40,000, which helped with medical bills and housing. As of 2024, Saturn lives in Minnesota, owns a home, and keeps a low profile. But here's the thing. All of his wrestling earnings, plus the GoFundMe money, has been consumed by healthcare costs. Perry Saturn did something genuinely heroic, paid for it with his health, and spent years homeless because of it. There's no happy ending here, just survival. And survival shouldn't be the best we can hope for someone who spent years entertaining millions of people. Tony Atlas won the Mr. USA bodybuilding title in 1979. In his first year of wrestling, he made $100,000, and that was 1970s money. He once said he made in 1 week what took Rocky Johnson 10 years to earn. Atlas adopted what he calls the Ric Flair mentality: live like a king, spend everything, save nothing. Cocaine became his constant companion. A car accident broke his neck, but he kept wrestling because that is what wrestlers do. By the late 1980s, it all collapsed. Divorce. IRS problems. The phone stopped ringing for bookings. In 1989, Tony Atlas, former Mr. USA and former WWE star, became homeless in Lewiston, Maine. For 18 months, he slept under park benches in Kennedy Park. He ate from dumpsters. He was still addicted to cocaine. He walked in front of cars hoping to be hit. He tried to provoke police into shooting him. Then he met a woman named Monica. She found him freezing in -20 degrees and called an ambulance. She saved his life. She is now his wife. In 1990, WWE brought Atlas back with the SABA Simba gimmick, a racist portrayal of an African tribesman that he understandably hated. But Atlas credits it with saving his life. It got him off the streets, it gave him structure, and it gave him a paycheck. Today, Tony Atlas works as a personal trainer at the YMCA in Lewiston, Auburn. He does appearances. He has a WWE Legends contract. His net worth is estimated between $500,000 and $1 million. From eating garbage to financial stability, Tony Atlas clawed his way back, but it took nearly dying in the cold to get there. The only reason he survived was because a stranger showed more compassion than an industry that made millions off his body. Kamala. James Harris wrestled as Kamala, the Ugandan giant, a problematic gimmick where a black man from Mississippi played a savage who could not speak. At his WWE peak in the 1980s, Kamala earned approximately $60,000 a year, substantially less than white wrestlers at similar positions on the card. Harris never learned to read or write beyond an elementary level. When wrestling ended, he drove trucks until diabetes forced him to stop in 2001. Then the amputation started. He lost his left leg below the knee in 2011 and his right leg below the knee in 2012, both due to diabetes and high blood pressure, conditions that proper healthcare might have managed. By 2014, Kamala was surviving on disability checks, selling handmade wooden chairs, and writing an autobiography. His class action lawsuit against WWE for brain injuries was dismissed in 2016. In 2019, he nearly lost his home. He owed $2,000 in property taxes, $9,500 in state income taxes, and his mortgage was delinquent. Former wrestler B. Brian Blair organized a GoFundMe. Chris Jericho donated $5,000. Kamala died of COVID-19 complications in August 2020. He was 70 years old. After his death, another GoFundMe raised $32,664 for funeral expenses. Chris Jericho donated another $5,000. A man who performed for WWE for years could not afford to be buried. Let that sink in. The Haiti Kid. Raymond Kessler wrestled as the Haiti Kid in WWE's midget wrestling division. He appeared at WrestleMania 2 in Mr. T's corner. He competed at WrestleMania 3, one of the most watched wrestling events in history. In 2001, multiple websites reported that the Haiti Kid had died at age 46. He had not. In February 2009, a wrestling fan discovered Raymond Kessler living in a homeless shelter in the Greenpoint neighborhood of Brooklyn. He had been there for years. He was completely unaware that the internet had declared him dead. Think about that level of erasure. A man performs at WrestleMania 3 in front of 93,000 people, and years later, nobody even knows if he is alive. When he was found, he expressed hope that he might return to wrestling. As of 2025, Kessler would be approximately 71 years old. There is almost no public information about what happened to him after 2009. He simply vanished again. The false death reports had damaged whatever remaining career opportunities he might have had. He grew so obscure that he was essentially forgotten while still alive. Abdullah the Butcher. Larry Shreve wrestled as Abdullah the Butcher for decades, becoming a hardcore legend known for his forehead scars from years of blading. He was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2011. He also has only a second-grade education and claims complete illiteracy, a claim that would come back to haunt him. In 2014, wrestler Devin Nicholson sued Abdullah for transmitting hepatitis C to him during a match. Abdullah was supposed to appear in court, but he could not read the summons, and he lost by default. The judgment was $2.3 million. Abdullah's wife then seized control of his assets, changing the deed to their house to her name and her brother's. His restaurant, Abdullah the Butcher's House of Ribs and Chinese Food, continues to operate, but the profits go elsewhere. He sold his WWE Hall of Fame ring just to survive. Today, Abdullah is 82 years old, handicapped, needs a hip replacement, and uses a walker. His assistant has said he does not understand how to follow directions or even use an ATM. His wife is divorcing him and taking all remaining properties. A GoFundMe for $60,000 in legal fees raised only $7,516. He has been hospitalized multiple times in recent years with serious health issues. Abdullah the Butcher spent decades entertaining fans around the world. His inability to read allowed people to take advantage of him his entire life, and now he is spending his final years fighting to keep anything at all. Brutus Beefcake. Ed Leslie was Hulk Hogan's best friend, and that friendship defined his entire career. As Brutus the Barber Beefcake, he was a tag team champion, a featured performer, and a consistent presence on WWE television throughout the 1980s. Then in July 1990, a parasailing accident nearly killed him. His face was completely destroyed. Doctors reconstructed it using 8 titanium plates, 32 screws, and 100 feet of steel wire. It was genuinely a miracle he survived. Hogan made sure Beefcake stayed employed, getting him work in movies and eventually bringing him to WCW. But Leslie sued WWE in the mid-1990s trying to get the rights to the Brutus Beefcake name. He lost. In WCW, he cycled through terrible gimmicks: the Butcher, the Zodiac, the Booty Man, and the Disciple. None of them worked. In April 2003, the IRS hit him with a lien for $57,425. By February 2004, Brutus the Barber Beefcake, former WWE star, was working as a fare collector for the Boston subway system. The job paid $25,000 a year. That's when things got weird. Leslie left a bag of cocaine in his booth at the downtown crossing station. A subway rider saw the white powder and in the post-9/11 era assumed it might be anthrax. The station was evacuated. Hazmat teams were called. It was not anthrax. It was cocaine. Leslie admitted the drugs were his and checked into rehab. He was fired from the MBTA for violating their drug policy. He was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2019, with Hogan doing the honors. But since then, his reputation has suffered. Multiple promoters have accused him of no-showing events after receiving payment, and there have been reports of inappropriate behavior, including racial remarks. From WrestleMania star to subway worker to drug scandal to Hall of Famer to industry pariah. Brutus Beefcake's journey is one of the strangest in wrestling history. 2 Cold Scorpio. Charles Skaggs, 2 Cold Scorpio, was ahead of his time. His 450 splash was revolutionary. He won the World Championship Wrestling Tag Team Championship. He held the Extreme Championship Wrestling Television Championship 4 times, and he was consistently one of the best in-ring performers of the 1990s. His problems started early. World Championship Wrestling released him for smoking marijuana. In World Wrestling Entertainment, as Flash Funk, the bigger paychecks meant more money for cocaine. World Wrestling Entertainment offered him help, but when he failed to show up to a meeting with Jim Ross, they released him in 1999. Humiliated, Scorpio quit drugs and rebuilt his career, most notably spending 7 years in Pro Wrestling Noah in Japan. But as he aged, the bookings dried up. At 58 years old, he took a job as an armed security guard at a Love's Travel stop in Kansas City. At 3:40 a.m. on June 15, 2024, everything changed. Scorpio confronted a man for smoking inside the store. Words were exchanged. The situation escalated. They moved outside. A fight started. Scorpio pulled a knife and stabbed the man multiple times, in the head, chest, buttocks, legs, and abdomen. Police found the victim bleeding on the ground, going in and out of consciousness. Scorpio claimed self-defense. He was charged with first-degree assault and armed criminal action, both felonies. Released on $50,000 bail, he pleaded not guilty. The injury and arrest left him unable to work. His girlfriend started a GoFundMe, explaining that medical bills were piling up, they had no health insurance, and they needed help proving his innocence. As of this recording, Scorpio's trial is scheduled for November 2025. A man who was once one of the most exciting wrestlers in the world is now facing potential prison time because of an altercation at a gas station where he was working security. That is what the end of a wrestling career looks like for too many people. Rico Constantino. Rico's story is actually one of the more hopeful ones, though it did not look that way for a while. He did not start wrestling until he was 37 years old, after competing on American Gladiators in 1990. In WWE, he managed Billy and Chuck and 3 Minute Warning, won Tag Team Gold twice, and was a reliable hand during the Ruthless Aggression era. After WWE released him in 2004, Rico returned to law enforcement in Nevada. He worked for the Nevada Taxi Cab Authority and as a part-time security officer for the U.S. Marshals. It seemed like he had made a successful transition. Then, in 2016, his former manager Kenny Bolin revealed that Rico was seriously ill. 2 leaky heart valves, 2 blood clots, 1 an inch long, traumatic brain issues causing severe memory problems, a collapsed lung, and no financial help whatsoever. Bolin wrote that he had not spoken a word to hardly anyone in about 9 months and that he desperately needed our help. A GoFundMe campaign aimed for $10,000. Chris Jericho donated $3,000. Lillian Garcia gave $500. Rico texted his gratitude saying, "It is nice to see some kind-hearted people out there in this world." But here is where Rico's story diverges from the others. In October 2024, he made a surprise appearance at AEW Wrestle Dream, accompanying MXM Collection to the ring to confront his old client Billy Gunn. Rico described the AEW locker room as completely different from WWE in the 2000s. Everyone was friendly, no heaviness in the air, people were actually talking to each other, getting along. He now hosts a podcast called Stylin' and appears to be doing well. Sometimes the story does not end in tragedy. Lex Luger. Lex Luger was supposed to be the next Hulk Hogan. The physique, the look, the push. WWE tried everything to make him a megastar in the early 1990s. At his WCW peak, Luger was earning over $500,000 a year with total career earnings in the millions. The downfall started in 2003. Luger was dating Miss Elizabeth, Randy Savage's iconic manager and ex-wife. On May 1st, 2003, she died in Luger's home from an accidental overdose of alcohol, painkillers, and tranquilizers. She was 42 years old. When police investigated, they found controlled substances in the house. Luger was arrested and charged with 13 felony counts. The legal battle that followed consumed nearly everything he had. Years of court appearances, lawyer fees, and the stress of potentially facing serious prison time drained his finances. He was eventually cleared of the felony charges, but the damage was done. In 2005, he was arrested for traveling to Canada without court approval and jailed again. Then in 2007, nerve impingement in his neck caused temporary paralysis. The medical bills piled up. WWE signed him to their wellness program in 2011, which provided some support. But nearly all his money since has gone to healthcare. As of 2021, Lex Luger is confined to a wheelchair, requiring constant care. His estimated net worth today is around $500,000, down from the millions he earned over a career that included main events at WrestleMania and Starrcade. The total package is now a cautionary tale about how quickly everything can disappear when tragedy strikes and medical bills start accumulating. Virgil. Mike Jones wrestled as Virgil, the million-dollar man's bodyguard, but what most people do not know is that he holds a mathematics degree from the University of Virginia. He was a high school math teacher before wrestling. None of that education could save him from becoming an internet punchline. After his wrestling career ended, Virgil became infamous for the Lonely Virgil meme. Photos from wrestling conventions showing him sitting at his table with no fans in line, while other wrestlers had crowds waiting. It became a cruel joke, but behind the meme was a man struggling to survive. In the 2010s, Virgil was selling autographs wherever he could, at subway stations, at random conventions, anywhere that would let him set up a table. He lived with a roommate in Marianna, Pennsylvania for over 5 years. In 2016, he sold his WWE Hall of Fame ring just to cover legal costs. His health deteriorated rapidly in his final years. 2 strokes, dementia, stage 2 colon cancer. In 2023, a GoFundMe sought just $400 for clothes and toiletries. $400. That is what a man who appeared on pay-per-view needed help raising for basic necessities. There is dispute about his age. He died in February 2024 at what was reported as 61, but evidence suggests he was actually 72. Even his own age became murky at the end. Chris Jericho donated $5,000 toward funeral expenses, because even in death, a wrestler who entertained millions could not afford to be buried without crowdfunding. Virgil was not a main eventer. He was a supporting character, but his story shows that financial ruin does not discriminate based on your spot on the card. If anything, the mid-carders and enhancement talent have it worse. Less money coming in, same expenses going out. Lex Luger. He earned over $500,000 annually at his peak. In 2003, his girlfriend Miss Elizabeth died from an overdose in his home. Police found steroids. He faced 13 felony charges. The legal fees consumed his fortune. In 2007, nerve damage left him temporarily paralyzed. Today he is confined to a wheelchair, worth maybe $500,000, down from millions. Dynamite Kid was one of the most influential wrestlers ever, but he was also a domestic abuser who once held a gun to his wife's head. Steroid abuse since 1979 destroyed his body. By 1997, he was in a wheelchair for life. He died on his 60th birthday in 2018, broken paralyzed. X-Pac filed for bankruptcy due to addiction costs after his 2002 divorce triggered drug and alcohol abuse. He admitted to multiple suicide attempts. He has since recovered. He holds a WWE Legends contract, and his net worth is around $500,000. Justin Credible. Justin began using OxyContin while wrestling in ECW, then turned to alcohol, reportedly consuming 750 liters of vodka a day mixed with Coke. He spent 45 days in prison for violating protective orders. In October 2024, he was hospitalized after a car accident, and he asked fans for gas money to get home. He completed rehab in November 2025, and he continues to rely on fan donations. One Man Gang, also known as Akeem, worked as a prison guard after wrestling, until back problems forced him to retire. In 2016, the Louisiana Great Flood destroyed his home and everything he owned. FEMA had told him he did not need flood insurance. A GoFundMe helped him rebuild, but he lost virtually everything, through no fault of his own. Brian Knobbs of the Nasty Boys has faced multiple serious health crises, including knee infections, stomach problems, and complications from diabetes. Hurricane Milton destroyed his home in October 2024, and since then he and his wife have been living from hotel to hotel. In March 2025, he faced a possible foot amputation. A $30,000 GoFundMe campaign is trying to help with his medical bills and housing. Jerry Lynn had a 25-year career that destroyed his body. He underwent neck surgery in 2015 to remove bone spurs, replace 3 discs, and fuse vertebrae. He had insurance through his day job, but he needed help with the $5,000 deductible. He generously donated excess GoFundMe money to a homeless shelter. In 2024, he needed another surgery for vein issues and neuropathy. 20 wrestlers, 20 stories of financial ruin, and one common thread running through almost all of them: the complete failure of the wrestling industry to care for its own. These are not isolated incidents. They are symptoms of a system designed to extract maximum value from performers while bearing minimum responsibility for their well-being. Independent contractor status means no health insurance, no retirement benefits, no workers' compensation. When the money stops, and it always stops, you are on your own. The addiction epidemic in wrestling is not a coincidence. These performers work through injuries that would sideline athletes in any other sport. The painkillers that keep them going become the addictions that destroy them. And when they spiral, there is no safety net, no employee assistance program, no union to advocate for them. Look at who actually helped these people. Diamond Dallas Page saved Scott Hall and Jake Roberts. Chris Jericho has donated thousands to colleagues in need. B. Brian Blair organized GoFundMe campaigns. The Cauliflower Alley Club provided financial assistance. Wrestlers helping wrestlers, because the companies that made billions off their bodies will not. WE has, to their credit, paid for some rehabs. They have a Legends program that provides some support. But it is selective, it is inconsistent, and it only helps the people they choose to help. There is no systematic solution, no guaranteed safety net. Meanwhile, we have a man who was shot twice saving a woman from rape, ending up homeless. A WrestleMania performer found living in a shelter. A Hall of Famer who could not read losing millions in a lawsuit because nobody helped him understand the legal documents. Something has to change. Whether that is unionization, mandatory healthcare benefits, or simply the industry taking responsibility for the people who built it, something has to give. Because right now, the path from main event star to broke and broken is far too well traveled. And until that changes, we will keep telling these stories. We will keep watching GoFundMe campaigns get set up for people who entertained millions. We will keep seeing the same cycle repeat. These wrestlers gave their bodies to entertain us. The least we can do is remember their stories and demand better for the ones who come next. Like and subscribe for more hard-hitting wrestling documentaries. Until next time.